Hey everyone. So excited to be here. I'm going to do a movie review. And hey, thanks everyone for joining. And this is a Reading Rage Live, and I'm alive! It's alive! Anyways, I just wanted to come on here real quick and just say that I am going to do a quick movie review and analysis critique of an indie film that is actually, I just found out was produced. One of the producers was Elijah Wood, which I'm actually not surprised at all about. He comes out in the just most fascinating movies that are very, very indie, like I Don't Think I Belong in This World Anymore. And if you know any of his like latest indie films, it's pretty on point. I'm not surprised he produced this film now that I was like doing research about it. It's The Greasy Strangler. And so kudos to House of Monsters for actually getting the director and one of the stars out there to do an introduction. I will just be honest, I missed a little bit of that part, but I did get there for the film showing. And so the director was Jim Hosking, and the star that came out was Sky Elobar. And so Sky was Brayden, if you ever saw the film. If you haven't, then he's the son in the movie The Greasy Strangler. And it's just a hilarious film. I mean, like, think of like the gore, the cheesy 80s horror movie gore from like Dead Alive, and then like these really like deadpan serious kind of ridiculous Napoleon Dynamite-esque movie. And that's not to say that that's exactly the way it should be categorized, but it definitely is. I feel like if you like those films, you might be able to get into this one. It's you have to be immature enough to love like ridiculous humor, but mature enough that you're going to be okay with like a lot of full frontal, just like the entire movie, full frontal, just in general. But I really, really liked it. And the soundtrack was amazing. It is by Andrew Hung, and I thought that it was perfect. It was just nothing like you've heard before. They definitely made it themselves. And so that was probably one of my favorite parts, was the soundtrack in the film. And like I said, the humor is very ridiculous, but it is mature for mature audiences. Don't take your kids to see this, okay? I mean, if you want to, you can. And yeah, for sure, rated R. And but it made it perfect. It was like, and then we have, I don't know, I would say like Napoleon Dynamite 80s horror meets true crime. It was just fascinating to see it in a group setting, to see like who was laughing, who was not laughing. Mostly everyone was laughing. I know I laughed probably the hardest. And then there was these like dance scenes that were just priceless. Like the disco scene is supposed to be really, really popular in this film. And then their expressionless laughter. So if you've seen it, you get what I'm saying. If you haven't seen it, I'll give you a little example. They like laugh. And they're like, I mean, it's for like minutes at a time. It is hilarious. I mean, you it's like deadpan. It's hilarious. And so at the end of the day, it was goofy, it was silly, it was ridiculous, but then I really digested it, and I saw all these other just like motifs and themes behind it, and I really wanted to go into that as quickly as possible. And so I already told you that Sky Elobar was Brayden. He's the son in the film The Greasy Strangler. Ronnie is played by, that's the father's name, and that is played by the actor Michael St. Michaels. No, I didn't make that up. His name is Michael St. Michaels, and he's the father in the film. And then we see the love interest is Janet, and she's played by the actress Elizabeth de Razzo. So de Razzo, I don't know how they would say it, but that's how I'm saying it. And Janet is like the surrogate mother in the film. Surrogate mother, definitely lover of everybody, really. And so there's a lot of polyamory going on. So her body, her right. Yeah, her right to choose. And no, she's not the most likable character. But at the end of the day, she's this like strong female character who gets to choose what she does with her body. And I really like that. And honestly, we see these men, and the underlying tones at the end of the day is all about a father who was never really able to self-actualize. And he's like really frustrated, has all these pent-up anger and frustrations with having to be a father, and how he feels his life was taken away by having to be a father and having to raise his son, and then like not accomplishing all of the goals of stardom that he wished he could have. So that he wasn't able to self-actualize, and we see this and how it affects his son, this trauma, and they're both really depressed, even though they don't really, I mean, they'll say it. I think the son Braden says it probably more often. But you see this depression and this desperation in both of them, and how the son is really desperate to be his father's best friend, and keeps getting shunned by his father, right? And so it's this man who is still like a boy trying to be the dominant role and show his manhood and be his father's best friend and be accepted into like the male circle, and he's not able to do that. And so we see a lot of Freud, and like in my graduate school I learned about Freud, and I keep fighting this idea of like the Freudian theory, but then every film I watch, for the most part, I see all these Freudian undertones, and I hate it, but it's true, so I have to bring it up. So Freud has this thing called the Oedipus complex, and so this is where, and the castration complex. So this is, in a nutshell, it's about how a man and a son, a father and a son, are competing for dominance in the household, and how as a boy grows up, he sees that the father has a wife and a lover, and how he is the head of the household. And so this young son is always trying to be that dominant head of the household, like the young lion trying to overcome the father lion, the dominant lion. And we see that in, obviously, Oedipus Rex, that old play. And that's where he takes it from. And we even see this in like biblical stories and religious stories about, there's this God complex, and then someone trying to be the God in their own life, right? And so it's just, they make plays about it. Oedipus Rex was a play that they made about it. It's a story as old as time. And it's because it's ubiquitous in nature, right? Everybody has that. You want to be the adult, and you want to be independent. And so it's just about this son who's trying to gain his father's acceptance and acknowledgement that he is a man, right? And then a father who has been castrated also, both of them, multiple times in this film. And the women in this film, the Greasy Strangler, is so powerful because the mother leaves the father, and so it's a broken household. And so he's castrated. He's no longer a married man. He's no longer the dominant. He has been left. His manhood has been taken. And so we see all of his actions are to make himself be more manly, since he lost his wife, or since they separated, right? and he couldn't hold a marriage together. And so then we see him try and take his son's girlfriend because he, again, does not want to be subordinate to his son. And so they're both fighting for this woman, Janet, and they're both trying to take her away because she is the mother figure, the surrogate mother figure, the lover figure. And they're both fighting to see this place, right? So they're both trying to fight being emasculated, and they both are, right? And that is all this pent-up frustration that they take out on Janet because the mother is no longer around and has left the picture. And so you don't really think about it, right? Because the movie's so silly and ridiculous. But then as you digest it, you start seeing that. But I do really love that woman's right to choose, her body, her right, the polyamory and all of this, and how this Oedipus Rex, this Oedipus complex and this castration complex come into play. It's, excuse my dog trailer, and that's my bike behind me. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see my bike. Apologize about that. And my bookshelf. And then that's my Frankenstein. This is my Frankenstein from House of Monsters. It's like a curtain, and I use it to cover some things. And then that's my vacuum over there. So sorry about that. Trying to hide as much stuff as possible. And then that's all of my sewing materials. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it. I apologize. But yeah, I'll go to another part really quickly before I end this, and that's the oil, right? So there's oil in this film. They cook with oil. They're always talking about oil. Then they have like the evidence from the murders in the Greasy Strangler is like wax oil, and all of this is, if you see the film, it's about a series of murders that are happening, and the son's trying to figure out who the killer is, and he's pretty sure he knows. And his girlfriend / ex-girlfriend / girlfriend lover, Janet, helps him as he's going through this process of trying to uncover the killer and deal with his emotions because he knows who the killer is, right? And so we see that at the end of the film, this idea of oil is really important. Because if you've ever, and you might not be religious, but in religion, oil is super important because you anoint things with it. And even if you're not religious and you're just like anything, you know how you get oil and it's either holy oil or you put your intention in it if you're not Catholic or Christian or anything like that. Still, if you practice any sort of spirituality, a lot of times oil is important because you set intention into it. You can even pray over it or set spells or whatever your spirituality is. It's whatever you call it, right? There's different vocabulary. You set intention into your oil, and then the oil, you anoint things with it, or you do different things with it, right? So unlike holy oil, it's like unholy oil. And you see that once they cover themselves with it, instead of like purifying, it putrefies, and they become these like different people, and they become like cannibals, which is very, very like sacrilegious because, and I'm not saying anything bad about it. I like the film, but it was very sacrilegious because it's like, instead of like the Bible where you're like doing the Eucharist and communion, it was cannibalism also, but like they're committing murders and then they're like eating the people. It was so cool once you see all these connections. It's like the God complex, and the son is innocent and like at first, and then, I mean, innocent to a degree, right? But it's like the son, and then the mother is out of the picture, and then trying to fight with the father and the God complex, and then the oil with the anointing, and then the cannibalism, like eating of the body of Jesus Christ when if you're like a Catholic or a Protestant or whatever. I mean, it's all super sacrilegious and super metaphorical. I mean, it's like it's just an allusion to like Bible and or the Oedipus. And so I just loved it. I loved all of these things. And then, of course, there was a few other things that I'll touch on. They have these like out of body experiences where they see themselves outside of themselves, and you see reality happening versus what's happening in their mind. And it's so good. It's like, it's amazing. That was my favorite part about this like surrealism and a psychosis. And so and then the last thing is the color palette. You know, I have to talk about the color palette. It's me. There's these bright pinks, bright oranges, purples, and these all just like juxtapose these people's personalities, right? They're supposed to be these stranglers, these killers, these crazy people that walk all over each other and hate each other and are vindictive towards each other, but they have these like bright pinks that they're wearing, and shows that they've been emasculated and that they're just that is so, it shows their feelings, but also shows just an opposite of what they're trying to portray, but also shows a deeper part of themselves. It's just, you have to see it. And so if you really like gore and like 80s horror gore films that are just like campy and cheesy and ridiculous, this film's for you. Yeah, if you like those, if you liked Elijah Wood's movie that he was in, I don't belong in this world. I don't feel I belong in this world anymore. You will love this film. And if you haven't seen it, then you should see it. And then, of course, last but not least, I want to thank my unofficial sponsor, who's not really my sponsor and who maybe one day will be my sponsor, Bigelow Tea. So I'm a gigolo for Bigelow, okay? This is an Earl Grey tea. Thank you so much, Bigelow Tea. Maybe you'll sponsor me one day. I always feel like it's so dark in my videos that I put a light on me. I don't really like it. You can like see my little bags in my eyes. I'm so sorry, everybody. But it was a ridiculous movie, but there was a lot of metaphor and allusion, ALLUSIONS, allusions to other things in it. It was kudos to House of Monsters for getting the director Jim Hosking out there and getting star Sky Elobar out there. They're on the strip, so I'm going to tag them in the notes at the bottom, the description. So go give them a follow, give them a like. They have movies all the time, and they have a lot of amazing retail merchandise. Go check it out. I hope you liked my review. That was a quick sum up of my analysis of the film and like the themes beneath it. I kind of touched my boobies when I did that. I'm sorry. But yeah, I appreciate anybody who watches this, and I hope I made it quick. I'm trying to make them quicker to the point. You know what I mean? Okay, thanks, and we'll see you next time. This was a Reading Rage Live. How do I end this? Bye.